He gaslighted me so hard. I left feeling kind of defeated and also like, maybe I am just anxious, believing the gaslighting that he did. After about 2 more weeks, I just kept feeling weird and going back and forth in my brain, being like, well, maybe I'm just a psycho and I'm worried too much about my baby. Or, no, there's something wrong with my baby. I just feel wrong about it. We need to get her checked. And I just, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in my brain. I want to say, trust your gut.
Hey, welcome to the Mommas Lounge podcast, where we get real about the beautiful chaos of postpartum. I'm your host, Camille Perkins, and I'm happy you're here. We're all about authenticity, the highs, the lows, and the unexpected messy middles. We'll find strength in our faith, embrace our diverse experiences, and love without judgment. So, grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Mommas Lounge. This is going to be the last episode of season 1 for the Mommas Lounge. When I first started my podcast, I had the plan to do a seasonal format of how I produce my episodes, and of course I got too excited and released after I only had made 1.5 episodes and it caught up to me. And so I've been making episodes the week of them being posted. And that is a lot of work, really stressful. And I've noticed that after a couple of episodes that my content quality kind of goes down because I'm stressed and I'm not able to make the best quality that I want to. So my hope is that by taking a break, quote unquote, from posting, I can use that break to pre-make episodes, to schedule appointments with people so that I can make interviews with them and record them, edit them, brainstorm better ideas, do more solo episodes that are better quality and shorter and not so long. That way, your experience with this podcast can be better, shorter, easier for you to manage as a mother. And that's kind of the whole point, is so that moms can listen to this and have some kind of support. But I know that most moms aren't going to take an entire hour to listen to me. I know I don't. Every time I listen to anything, whether it's music or a podcast, because I'm, taking care of my baby or making lunch or, doing all the things that I'm doing, I usually only have 10 to 20 minutes. And so I'm going to keep interview episodes longer because I think those are funner to hear the whole conversation through, whether it's a part 1 or part 2. But for solo episodes, I want to make better quality content. So be looking forward to that. You'll see me again in August. You can use that time to catch up on the previous episodes. And then also, I'm going to be reaching out to a lot of my friends and saying, hey, in the next 2 months, let's schedule some interviews. That way I can kind of rack up on some good content to edit and produce. So be looking forward to that. I'm really excited. Today's topic is going to be all about what I learned with Janie's allergies. And I'm basically going to be just telling a whole bunch of that because every time I say, oh yeah, my baby's allergic to milk, a lot of my friends say, how did you know that? How did you figure this out? And I'm sure sometimes they wonder about their kids, like, is my kid allergic to anything and how can I know? I am not a pediatrician or a dietitian. So I can't tell you how to know for any foods, but this was something that I noticed with my baby and something that ended up being an issue and a problem and something that we could fix. So hopefully it's helpful. I will give a shout out to an app called Solid Starts if you haven't used them before. They actually have an entire section of their app as well as on their Instagram page about allergies and about how to manage allergies, what to look for with allergies. I'm actually unsure if you need to have a paid version for that, but I just have their free version and love their free version. But I do know that they do have a section that's all about allergies and stuff, what to look for, and then of course always ask your pediatrician when introducing solids. So, here we go. It all started with a 21 Pilots concert, and it's actually funny because I didn't mean to do this, but I was actually wearing this shirt if you're watching on YouTube. I'm wearing a black button-up shirt with daisies on it because that's kind of a theme for 21 Pilots. If you don't know what 21 Pilots is, they're a band. They're really good. You should check them out. And I was going to their concert called Clancy. And this was with my husband, my brother, and my brother's best friend. And I remember when they first announced their new album and their tour, it was in March. So I hadn't had Janie yet. When we had bought the tickets, I was like, Drew, Janie's only going to be 2 months old by then, because the concert was in August. And I was like, how are we going to do this? I really, really want to go. I love 21 Pilots. How could I not go, right? We kind of brainstormed and we were like, we'll figure it out when we get there. So we pulled the trigger, bought the tickets. They were very expensive. We didn't even have a plan on how we were going to get there because we decided to go to Las Vegas for it because the dates for Colorado and Utah just didn't work for us. So we bought those tickets, and one day I was telling my family, oh, hey, we bought tickets to 21 Pilots concert, but we have no idea what we're going to do. We're really excited, though. My dad was like, well, what if me and mom came with and we could babysit Janie while you guys just go and we can buy an Airbnb for you guys? And I was like, that sounds awesome. So I have my baby in June. After 2 months, it's August, and we're so excited for this concert. And I'm definitely still at the point in my journey where I'm still pretty nervous about leaving Janie behind, and this was going to be like a 6-hour venture without her. And so I was pretty nervous, but we went, and I was able to just kind of become part of the clique again, meaning part of the fan base for 21 Pilots. I was able to kind of shut off my mom mode and just have so much fun at the concert with Drew and my siblings. And it was a lot of fun, and I'm so grateful that my parents did that for me. So we have tons of fun, and then the next day we're just kind of chilling at the Airbnb before we leave the next day, because we decided to get there a day early and stay a day later so that we could just have some fun. And while we were upstairs in the Airbnb, Janie does a big poo, and we change her diaper, and this was a poo unlike any other. Usually baby's poo is very, like, seedy, curdly, cottage cheesy. Sorry if you didn't know that. Sorry if that grossed you out, or if that ruined cottage cheese for you, but it's a very, like, yellowy poop. Sometimes it can be green, sometimes it can be yellow, whatever, maybe a little bit orange, but usually their poo is pretty liquidy with a whole bunch of seeds and cottage cheesy stuff in it. Is usually what it looks like, and that's what Janie's poo always looked like. It was very consistent. But this day it was like a very, very, very liquid, no cottage cheese, no seeds, and it was so liquidy that it actually filled her diaper up with water. So when we had changed it had piled up water like a little pool of poo. Sorry, it's disgusting. And I was like, oh my goodness, like she had a diarrhea. And I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't worried. And I was like, oh my gosh, mom, look. And she was like, yep, that's a diarrhea diaper. Wow, that's crazy. And I was like, okay. And I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, maybe she got a little bit sick, but like, that's okay, you know. Anyways, then we go home from the concert, and it was probably 2 weeks later, I was changing her diaper again, and I was like, it's never been the same. What happened to the cottage cheese stuff? What happened to the seedy stuff, you know? Because ever since then, when we had been changing her diapers, it wasn't like watery piled up, like it wasn't a pool of water anymore. But her poop never had the seeds anymore, and it seeped all the way through the top and middle layers. It never seeped through the bottom of the diaper, but it basically seeped through the entire diaper until it reached the bottom, and it would seep through the bottom. But that's pretty watery, right? Like, that's pretty runny. And there are some babies who, they've always had poop like that, and that's normal for them. Cool. For Janie, it wasn't normal, because her normal was the seedy cottage cheese stuff that was pretty liquidy, but then it just changed all of a sudden, and then stayed changed. And for a while I was like, maybe this is her new normal, like, not a big deal. But something that I had a habit of was just tracking and looking at her diapers, because I had the Huckleberry app, and I would just track how many diapers she had in a day, and that was something that just, like, helped me feel like I understood my baby and understood what was kind of going on in her life, and also helped me to be feeling productive. And as I continued to write down how many diapers she had and checked out her poop and what it looked like, over time I started to have these little black flakes in them. And I wasn't giving her any solid foods at this point, just breast milk. And they were like little pepper flakes. Like, you know, like crushed red pepper, those pepper flakes. It was like that, but black. I was like, that's kind of weird. So now I'm like searching things up on Google, and they're like, oh, like you probably have had like a cracked nipple that's bleeding, and the blood is going through her system. And then this is actually right around the time I had a milk bleb, which I had talked about last time. So I was like, oh, it's probably just the milk bleb. But I was still like pretty stressed about it because postpartum anxiety, you know? So I was like, well, maybe she's sick. Maybe it was the milk bleb. Maybe she's sick. Maybe it was the milk bleb, because I had bled a little bit from that. I decided to not worry about it too much. But then after 3 weeks, I just felt weird. And I just felt like something was wrong. So I decided to go in and go see a doctor. I went in to go see a doctor. I won't name him, but he gaslighted me so hard. And it wasn't that he was just telling me there wasn't a problem. It was that he wasn't listening to me and was trying to tell me that I didn't know how to be a mother. It was really weird. So I go in. I say, hey, yeah, like she's had really, really wet diapers, and I'm starting to see these black flakes in them, and I just like want to make sure that like she's okay, or if maybe she has like an allergy or something, because I'd been reading online, people are like, oh, it could be a milk allergy, but you know, go talk to your pediatrician. So I did, and he was like, okay, and I was like, yeah, so what should we do? And he's like, are you sure it's diarrhea? And I was like, Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's not like seedy. It's not like it was before. It's very, very wet. It soaks through a diaper. And he was like, well, yeah, but like babies poo, like, that's normal. It's pretty wet. And I was like, yes, but this isn't normal for her. And she's been a little bit more fussy than usual. Not like crazy fussy, but she was starting to get a little bit fussier. And he was like, you're probably just too worried about it. Like, there's nothing wrong. And I was like, I could show you pictures. And then he was like, I don't need to see pictures. She's not sick. She's not, like, there's no problems. Stop worrying about it, is basically what he told me. And I was like, okay. And I remember being really frustrated because instead of, like, educating me on what real diarrhea should look like, and instead of telling me, maybe we could look into it, let's get her tested just in case. Because guess what? Getting it tested through my insurance is totally free. You know, like, there is no problem to just try it. So, anyways, I was really frustrated. I left feeling kind of defeated and also like, maybe I am just anxious, you know, believing the gaslighting that he did. And after about 2 more weeks, I just kept feeling weird and going back and forth in my brain, ruminating, right? Like I talked about last time, being like, well, maybe I'm just a psycho and I'm worried too much about my baby. Or, no, there's something wrong with my baby. I just feel wrong about it. We need to get her checked. And I just, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in my brain every time I'd change her diaper, anytime she would fuss. So that was getting me feeling pretty stressed. And I want to say it's hard because as a mother or just as someone who is anxious in general, a lot of people say, like, trust your gut, like, trust your mother's gut. And I totally believe that because honestly, a lot of the times I've had instincts almost as a mother. As I've gotten more into mothering, I guess, or as I've learned my baby, I can tell when something's off because she's my baby and I'm with her the most. So when something's different, my gut or my brain, I guess, can just tell, you know? And I think as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have the constant companionship of the Holy Ghost and he can kind of help us know, right? So I do think definitely trust your gut. And I kept having people tell me that. Like my dad would say, well, if you feel wrong about it, like go to a different doctor. And I remember feeling very validated by my dad, but also worried that my gut was just me being crazy. It's just my anxiety. Like, I'm just over worried about this. And one thing that made me feel this way was a lot of the time, my mom and Drew's mom, when they would help with Janie and change her diaper and stuff, they would say, oh yeah, I do see the black flakes. And then they would say, you know, when I was changing my kid's diaper, like, I just never looked that closely. And I think that's totally normal. I think most moms probably don't look that closely at their kids too. And I just happened to. And so there was nothing wrong for them saying that. And I think it's totally valid and normal. But it was just telling me in a way like, why are you looking so close at your kid's poo? Like, why do you care so much? And so in a way, I was feeling like, yes, I should trust my gut, like my dad says, but also like, I'm probably just having anxiety. Like, I'm probably just being crazy and I don't need to take my kid to the doctor. So there was one day I was at my parents' house. This is in October-ish. And Janie had become incredibly fussy. Like, it was probably the most fussy she'd ever been in her life at this point. She's like 3.5, maybe 4 months old. And I was just feeling so stressed, so scared. And I was like, something's wrong with her. Like, I think she's just sick. My dad was like, then take her to a doctor. Like, go see a different doctor. Like, that doctor gaslighted you. You should go see a doctor. There's a primary children's care in Lehigh just around the corner. Like, have her go see a special doctor. Take her in. And I remember feeling all this pressure, like, I need to go see, like, a professional doctor. But is that going to be a waste of time? Is it going to be a waste of energy? Like, I was kind of at that point in my postpartum anxiety and depression that I didn't want to do anything that wasn't worth it because it just was so hard for me. And I was like, well, let's give her a blessing. So my dad and Drew, and I think my brother, I can't remember if he was there, ended up giving her a blessing. And I remember the blessing talking about, like, she's going to get the medical help that she needs. And because of that, she's going to be all right. And so I remember thinking, okay, like, I need to take her to the hospital, the primary children's care, and get her a doctor that can, like, actually see her and not gaslight me, you know? And I said, you know, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then, of course, the next day I woke up and I didn't take her. And it's because I just, again, would question myself. I would ruminate. I was so insecure about my decisions and about my thoughts that I just felt like I could never tell if what I was thinking was right. And so I waited, and after about maybe 2 more weeks, it got worse. And now every single diaper had the black flakes. Not just a few of them, but every single diaper. It was getting a little bit more watery too and darker. The color of her poop was getting a little bit darker. And so I was changing her diaper, and she had one that had a lot of black flakes. And this specific one, I had put it up in the light, because this is the point where I was like putting my baby's diaper under a light so that I could see the colors, you know? And there was 2 or 3 of those like pepper flakes that, again, they look like dry pepper flakes in the poo. But this one was bright red, and it still looked like a pepper flake. Like, it wasn't wet. It was just like a dry piece of crusty pepper flake, you know? That's the best way I could say it. But this time it was red. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to put this diaper in a plastic bag, and I'm going to take it to the doctor tomorrow, and we're going to get it tested. So I did that, and I just went to my doctor's office. I didn't take her to the hospital or anything. And the nurse, this time I got a nurse practitioner, and I think it was a nurse practitioner in training. And they came in, and I told them what was going on, and she was like, you know what, we can test a diaper, but I'm going to tell you right now, like, she probably has a dairy allergy. Like, if you're noticing these differences, if the poo really is this liquidy, and if you're feeling this way about it, and if you're noticing these black pepper flakes, what else is it going to be? She's breastfed. If you are noticing black dots in her poop, it's not breast milk. Something's going on. And she was like, have you had any cracked nipples in the last week? And I was like, no, it's been 2 months since I had, you know, blood on my nipple that she was drinking from. And she's like, okay, yeah, it's not that. Something else is going on. And then she asked me, are you lactose intolerant? And I said, yes, I am very lactose intolerant. And I don't do anything about it, though, because I love ice cream. But she was like, well, there are some studies showing that mothers who are lactose intolerant are more likely to have children who are milk sensitive. Not necessarily lactose intolerant themselves, but milk sensitive. And I was like, oh, interesting. That was something I did not know. But she said, let's go ahead and get the diapers tested anyways, but let's just assume that this is what it is, and let's go ahead and get you off dairy, soy, and whey. And the reason for this is because each of them all have a protein that each look super similar to each other that cause the milk sensitivity for some kids. And she said a lot of kids grow out of this, though, so don't worry too much about it, but since you're breastfeeding, go off dairy, soy, and whey. And I was like, okay, well, I'm also gluten-free. And she was like, hey, you know what? I had to do that too as a nurse. And she said, all my kids, I had to do dairy-free, soy-free, whey-free, gluten-free. And she said, but in my case, it helped them. And then eventually they grew out of it and they were just fine. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, I've already been gluten-free and we're just going to take out dairy, soy, and whey. So this took out a lot of protein options. I couldn't have cheese anymore. I couldn't have lactose-free milk. I had to have almond milk. And if you don't know, almond milk has literally no protein in it. And then there's a couple of gluten-free flours that actually contain whey. So I couldn't have any of those flours anymore. And so it kind of really restricted my diet. Anyways, we got the results from the diaper back after she was telling me all this information about going dairy-free and stuff. And she said, okay, the diaper came back negative for blood, but I still want you to try this diet because then you'll know, right? And she said most people see results after 2 or 3 weeks. So after 2 or 3 weeks, if you don't notice a difference, maybe come back in and we can get her poop tested for some bacteria or something like that. So I said, okay, and I went along with it and took her home, and I went totally 100% dairy, soy, whey, gluten-free. And it was hard the first week because I didn't know what to cook, what to make. But once I figured that all out, I'm actually super used to it now. I mean, I've been doing it for 8 months now, and I feel better because I've taken milk out of my diet, and I should have done that a long time ago because I guess lactose-free just wasn't cutting it. But yeah, I actually feel a lot better. I have way less stomach issues than I used to. And I've also cut out soy, which is hard because a lot of my favorite recipes have soy, and me and Drew are big cooks. We love to cook. And so we had to find a soy-free, gluten-free soy sauce because most soy sauces have wheat in them. And there's literally only one. And we love that stuff. And Walmart just this last week stopped carrying it, and I'm really upset. So now we just order off of Amazon. But anyway, so we made that change. And after about 2 weeks, we still didn't notice a difference. It was like just as bad, honestly. And I was starting to get worried that maybe she was having a bacterial infection. But we hadn't played in any kind of water near animals. We hadn't been around my dad's chickens. Like, I didn't know where she would have gotten a worm, you know, a parasite. I didn't think that's what it was. So about 3 weeks later, we were changing her diaper again, and this time there was wet red blood. It wasn't just the little dry pepper flakes that were red, but this time there was actually red blood. And it was pretty small. It was maybe the size of a pinhead, maybe a little bit bigger. Like, those like those pins with like the little circle on it so that you can keep clothes in place. It was probably the size of that, maybe a little bit bigger. And it was pretty clear. It was like there was the brown poop, and then on top of it was the bright red stuff. And there was like 1 or 2 of those in her diaper. And I was like, okay, we're taking her in right now. I want them to test this very fresh diaper. So I quick put it in a bag, called them while I was getting in the car and said, hey, are there any open spots? They said, yes, there are in 10 minutes. And I was like, perfect, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I drove on over, got her in. That was super lucky. Usually that's not the case for them to have an open schedule like that. And got to see a different doctor this time. And I loved this doctor. He was so much better than the other one. He came in and he was like, hey, tell me what's going on. Told him the whole story. Told him about the first doctor that annoyed me. And he was like, you know what? Well, as a pediatrician and as someone who is helping children, like, I really want to make sure that we get down to the bottom of whatever is going on. And he was the one who actually told me, and I really have learned to trust a mother's gut. And if your gut is telling you that something's wrong, then let's really get this figured out. So I really appreciated him. And that was like a doctor that I was like, see, we need more people like this. So he was like, we're going to test it for both bacteria and blood. And he was like, the bacteria won't come back for a couple of days, but the blood will have, in the next 10 minutes. So he tested it and he felt her tummy and stuff. And he said, she looks very, very, very healthy. She doesn't look like malnourished or anything. So he was like, I kind of doubt it's like a parasite or anything, but I guess it could be milk sensitivity. It just isn't to the point yet that it's causing her to be malnourished, right? So then he comes back in and her diaper finally came back positive for blood, and it was pretty clear. And so he said, okay, there's definitely blood in her system and you haven't had any issues with nursing. And I said, nope, not for about 2 months now. And he said, okay, yeah, like at this point, it's definitely milk sensitivity then, because there's really nothing else that could be causing blood in her digestive tract. However, in case there is something else, we're going to get x-rays for her. So this was just so good because this is a doctor who says, I'm going to take extra precautions to make sure that your baby is okay. And I think that doctors like that should just be applauded because we have the technology to make sure our babies are okay. Why aren't we using it? So I was really grateful for him. He set it all up and I was able to go to Primary Children's Hospital in Lehigh and go see a doctor there. And we did the whole x-rays on her little tummy. It was super cute. They had her like hold this super fancy spinning glowy toy and she just latched onto that and stayed super still as they took the x-rays and came back super healthy. So they said, yep, it's definitely a milk sensitivity. We need to make sure that you are not eating milk, soy, and whey. And that was cool because I didn't just get the x-ray taken, but I also got to talk to 2 GI specialists because they weren't busy that day. And one lady who was a GI specialist for children came in, felt around her tummy. She was like, you know what, there's another doctor here who's also really, really good at his job. So she was like, I'm going to call him in too. And so he also came in and they both were GI specialist doctors checking her out. They said, okay, definitely just go off the milk. She otherwise looks super, super good. And basically after she's healed up and the red and black flakes are gone and the red blood is gone in her poop, then when she's all healed up, start introducing milk. And the way you're going to do it is you have to do it super slow and you have to do it in variations that are getting more and more pure forms of milk, I guess you could say. You're going to introduce baked milk. So make some banana bread and put in a little bit of cow's milk and bake it. Make sure it's baked all the way through and then give her a little bit of that just once for one meal and see how she does for a week. And if she does fine, then do it again. Does fine, do it again. Then move on to cheese. Then move on to yogurt. Then move on to cow's milk. So it has been a long time and we're still stuck on the baked milk portion. And it's because I'm a little bit nervous about just hurting her a little bit too much, because for a couple of days she'll be fine. And so usually we do 2 weeks in a row. But then after that, she starts spitting up a lot more. And Janie, if you know her, doesn't spit up. And when she does, it's like a teaspoon. But after every time we introduce the baked milk, she starts spitting up more like 2 tablespoons worth. It's just a lot more, and it's more often. So normally she spits up maybe once every 3 days. But when we introduce the milk, it's like every day she's spitting up. And so I remember going to the doctor for like her 9-month checkup. It was just a checkup. And I was like, so like, how do I know when to keep going? You know, because she starts spitting up more, and she was like, well, we don't want her intestines to become too inflamed, but keep going and just watch it and just make sure it doesn't get to the point that it's like extreme and hurting her really bad. So that's what I did, and am still doing, and that's kind of where we are. And hopefully I can get to the point where I can be brave enough to give her enough milk, even though she's spitting up, and then see like if eventually her poop stays normal. And it's a lot harder to tell because right now her poop is very solid because she, you know, eats solid foods. So it's kind of harder to tell when it's upsetting her besides like her temperament and like her spitting up and stuff. But so there you go. There is that story. And that's just kind of the things that I learned. As a summary of all the things that I learned is to trust your gut. It never hurts to go to the doctor. Maybe you feel a little bit embarrassed like I did that one time when I took her to the doctor and the doctor like totally gaslighted me. I was pretty frustrated, but that didn't hurt Janie at all, right? All I have to do is bring in a diaper and they were testing it. So I don't know. If you are worried, it's best to probably just take them in. And then some of the things I learned is that I, as a person, look at my baby's poo too often, probably. And it ended up helping her in this case. So I'm glad that I was able to do that. And I've also learned that I probably shouldn't eat milk even after I'm finished nursing her because I just feel better. But it's so hard because I love Tillamook ice cream and I love cheese so much. And I'm just a dairy kind of girl. So we'll see what happens. So before I end this season, I wanted to share a spiritual thought that I had today while I was studying my scriptures, and also just tell all of you thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Each of you are awesome. I'm very grateful for all of you, not just because you're listening, but because many of you are my personal people in my life who support me and who love me, and I'm so grateful for you, and honestly couldn't be as good of a mom as I am today without you. So thank you. Please don't forget about me. I'm going to be gone for 2 months, but it's because I'm going to be gone making better and good content for you. In that time, I'm also going to be in the middle of moving most likely, and so I just don't want to have to deal with a podcast while I'm moving. So yeah, things to be looking for in the next season is more interviews. I'm so excited to get more of my friends on this podcast. I have so many mom friends, and so many of them have so many different stories and so many good things to share. If you are a mom friend who hasn't been interviewed and you're listening right now and you want to be interviewed, you should text me. Some other things to be looking forward to is I'm going to do my best to read more books that are related to postpartum and kind of do research that way. And then I'm going to be doing what I call book club episodes, where I invite a friend to read a couple of pages from that book, and then we'll get on and do like a mini book club episode of the book that we read. So I'm super excited for that. I still haven't finished the book that I'm reading right now because I've been making episodes so much that I haven't had time to read a book. And I'm watching Andor right now. It's really good. So I've been doing that. And then I'm also hoping to be releasing during my second season a beta version or like a draft version of my postpartum planner that I hope will be like a really cheap gift that you can buy and give to mothers at their baby showers. And just say, hey, like here is a way to plan for your postpartum experience before you have your baby. Just know that I am one of the people that you can put in that postpartum planner and know that I'll be there for you. So that's kind of some things that I'm excited to be talking about. If you have a way to contact me, please text me or go to my Instagram and comment on a post or DM me. Tell me what you want to see in season 2. What kind of topics do you want to be talked about? What experiences do you want to hear? What are some postpartum questions that you have? I'm going to be making a post and maybe everyone can just put their comments in there and let me know. So that way you can have more things that are kind of tailored to your wants and needs for season 2. So yeah, super excited. Thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and do a little spiritual thought and then we'll be done for today and for the season. Woohoo, season finale. So one of the topics in Come Follow Me this week is all about being a wise steward. And I kind of wanted to dive deep into this idea because I felt very validated when I read about the revelations that God gave to the pioneers while they were setting up in Ohio. He gave a whole bunch of instructions like chores You know, he was like, someone's gotta like manage the finances, and someone's gotta manage the property, and someone's gotta manage the building of structures. You know, like there are chores, quote unquote, or there are more temporary needs that need to be done, and they are appointed by the Lord. And I thought that was really cool because it often, even just yesterday, I was feeling this. I had wanted to read my scriptures, but then I got caught up in dishes and feeding my baby and then cleaning up after the mess that happens when I feed my baby, and then taking her out on a walk and then playing with her outside because it was such a beautiful day, and then coming inside and playing with her more, and just like doing the most I could as a mom to help her learn and grow in that way. And then also make dinner, and then make lunch for me and for my grandmother. And basically I did a lot yesterday when it came to like quote unquote chores, you know? And then at the end of the day, I realized I never actually read my scriptures. And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm so lazy. I didn't read my scriptures. And like I need to keep my relationship up with the Lord. And then this morning, as I was reading in Doctrine and Covenants, you know, the Lord basically was saying, well, let me actually read the actual scripture. So in Doctrine and Covenants 104, 11 through 15, and then also Doctrine and Covenants 51, verse 19. So verse 19 says, "And whoso is found a faithful, a just, and a wise steward shall enter into the joy of his Lord, and shall inherit eternal life." And I realized that as a mother, I was being a faithful and a just and a wise steward. Really meaning, I wrote it down in my journal. A steward is someone who has responsibility for something and is held accountable for caring for it, to take charge and make sure it is functioning well, providing needs and wants. And this is what I wrote in my journal. I said, as a wife and mother, I feel that I am, with Drew, a steward of our family, no matter where we go. I keep our family going, our home going, our friendships, our marriage going, our chores going. Like, I make sure that we as a family is functioning and running. It's almost like our family is a business and I'm the CEO, you know, like, and me and Drew's the CEO, of course, too. Like, we're working together to keep this whole thing functioning. And although I want to make sure that our covenants and our religion stay on the forefront, I need to also remember that the things that I do as a mother and as a wife and as a friend, and as a family member, right, the things that I'm doing are all part of God's work, even if it feels temporary, right? Like God in Doctrine and Covenants 51 in verse 1, he's talking to the Lord. He says, "Hearken unto me, saith the Lord your God, and I will speak unto my servant," and I'm going to say Camille, "and give unto her directions, for it must needs be that she receive directions how to organize this people." And then the things that he lists are things that are more temporary, right? It's not like these spiritual, like this person should have the priesthood, and this person should pray, and this person should set up the temple, you know, like it wasn't like super spiritual righteous things. It was rather like more chores. And so as I read that in my head, it felt like God was saying, laundry and playing with your baby and shopping and dishes and cleaning and managing finances and keeping up with your friends, keeping up with your family, taking out the trash, having a job, like all of these things are needed for your family to function. And you and Drew are the stewardship of your family. And I need you two to organize yourselves and to do this good divine work that I'm giving you. And I realized that like as we navigate this, we need to do our best to remember that it's these small things that we do every day that are part of our covenants, right? Part of our promise to God that we're going to build up his kingdom by building up our own family and by building up our characters. And it's cool because I had mentioned earlier Doctrine and Covenants 104, and I love what he says. It says, "It is wisdom in me, therefore a commandment I give unto you, that ye shall organize yourselves and appoint every man his stewardship. Let every man or woman," right, "give an account unto me of the stewardship which is appointed under him or her. For it is expedient that I, the Lord, should make every person accountable as a steward over earthly blessings, which I have made and prepared for my creatures. I, the Lord, stretched up the heavens and built the earth, my very handiwork, and all things therein are mine, and it is my purpose to provide for my saints, for all things are mine." Oh, so good. I love that because it's showing like, look, God, I also endeavored in quote unquote temporal things. I had to make the earth. I had to do a handiwork, right? And now you, as my children, get to, in a way, be divine and learn and become like me by creating your own homes and creating your own work so that you can learn and become and grow. And he says it's a commandment that we organize ourselves and practice a stewardship over these things. And so the next time I'm doing laundry or like doing endless hours of playing with Janie, I just want to make sure that I don't tell myself like, man, why am I not like reading my scriptures more? Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously the Lord wants me to read scriptures more. And I wrote that down as I was in my journal, seeking revelation from the Lord. I felt like God was saying, yes, I want you to do better with reading your scriptures. And it's not like you haven't been keeping your covenants. You have been. You have been doing the work of a wife and a mother and as a daughter of God. And that includes keeping your home running because that is a commandment. And you can repent and try reading your scriptures more, So hopefully that's something that's helpful for you and something that you can kind of take into your day is the Lord loves me. He sees the good divine work that I'm doing. I am fulfilling his commandment by being one of his stewards for his children and for this home and for my marriage or for my life, right? If you're not married, whatever the case. And he wants me to spend time with him. And so hopefully you can find some time to read some scriptures or to say a prayer or whatever it is to help you worship the Lord. And remember that you're doing good. He is proud of you. And I just wanted to deliver that because I felt like that was something that I needed to hear, which means many of us probably need to hear it collectively. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. So there you go. There is the last episode of Season 1 for the Mommas Lounge. Know that I will be back in August. I'll probably still be releasing on Fridays. If you're not following me on Instagram, follow me there because I'll put some updates there. I'm not super good at Instagram yet, but I'm hoping that in these next 2 months, I'm going to get better at Instagram so that you guys can have more say in the topics of what we're going to be talking about. And maybe I'll even ask you guys to give me some book recommendations and I'll read those books and kind of talk about them on the podcast. And then, of course, if you want to do an interview with me, please, please, please send me a DM. My username on Instagram is just the Mommas Lounge, MOMMAS. So there you go. There you have it. For the last time for the next 2 months, but please be doing it as often as you remember. If there is a mama that you're thinking about, please go text her, tell her that you love her and that she's doing a good job. And with that, I will see you next time.